Good morning. Thank you all for joining us at the museum this morning. My name is Dan Rothschild. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. On behalf of the Mercatus Center, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the first of a two-day conference held in conjunction with the Cato Institute on the future of American financial markets after Dodd-Frank. The Mercatus Center is the world's premier university source for market-oriented ideas. Our mission is to bridge the gap between academic ideas and real-world problems, bringing scholarly research to bear on some of the most pressing policy questions in America. The subject of this conference, the future of American capital market regulation, is ripe for an injection of fresh, academically grounded ideas. And as we can see from the great crowd that we have gathered here today, that it's clearly a subject in which there's much interest. Next week, as I'm sure you all know, marks the 4th anniversary of the Dodd-Frank Act. And it's tempting to use that occasion to point out and rehash the law's many inadequacies, unintended consequences, and failings. We would do better, however, to look towards the future. We need fresh thinking about improving the financial regulatory process, about increasing resiliency in our financial system, and about addressing systemic risk. It is in this spirit of developing new ideas for improving American capital markets that the Mercatus Center and the Cato Institute are hosting this conference. And I'm sure these 2 days will be very intellectually profitable for everyone in attendance. At this time, I'd like to thank the Mercatus Center events team for all the very hard work they put into making this event happen. And a special thanks goes to Hester Peirce, Director of the Mercatus Center's Financial Markets Working Group, and Lydia Mashburn, the Working Group Manager, for their intellectual leadership of this conference. With that, I'd like to turn the podium over to my colleague, Dino Falaschetti, to outline the day and introduce our opening keynote speaker. Again, on behalf of the Mercatus Center, welcome.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dino Falaschetti, Director of Operations at the Mercatus Center, and your host for our first day of the Future Finance Conference. Today and tomorrow with our friends at the Cato Institute, we'll take on an incredibly important question. How can ongoing reforms to financial regulation not only avoid another panic of 2008, but also bring back the robust growth to an economy that has fallen $1 trillion short of its potential during each of the last 5 years? Answering that question is important because finance is not a plaything for the elite. It's the fuel for economic dynamism that has brought so much opportunity to so many people for a long time. As we sit here today, we have to ask, where did that dynamism go? And how can regulatory reforms bring it back? The stakes are incredibly high. Absent such reforms, we could remain stuck in our current and unprecedented 5-year rut, one that has seen us fall short of our dreams to the tune of roughly $60,000 or $12,000 per year for a household of 4. That's serious stuff, so I thought I would start us out with a joke. There are 3 tired travelers, a Hindu priest, a rabbi, and a financial economist. Now I see some of you laughing. Why would these 3 be traveling together? The farmer welcomes them. They need a place to stay for the night, but the farmer notes that there are only 2 spare rooms. Somebody's going to have to sleep in the barn. The priest is very grateful and immediately volunteers to sleep in the barn. A couple of minutes later, there's a knock on the door. Priest can't sleep in the barn. Cows are honored in his religion. The rabbi says, that's understandable. I'll sleep in the barn. A couple of minutes later, another knock on the door. Pigs aren't kosher. Finally, the financial economist volunteers to sleep in the barn. Sure enough, a couple of minutes later, there's another knock on the door. It's the cow and the pig. Financial economists aren't always the most fun people at a party. I know, I'm one of them. And they certainly weren't popular after the panic of 2008. That's too bad. People in our field have important insights to where financial regulation should go. And we'll hear from some of them today in our fantastic venue, the museum. Like financial economists, people in the news media frequently get a bad rap. But both sectors are important for economic opportunity. The museum highlights the important role of a free press in a democratic society. That's also important for economic performance. Research suggests that economies work better when laws and regulations encourage us to do well by doing good. In economics, we say that market institutions facilitate mutually beneficial exchange. And a free press can help do just that by easing access to sound information. Free financial markets also strengthen economic performance. To be sure, free does not mean we can do whatever we want. Rather, we can do what we want as long as we participate in the value that we create for others and pay for the damages we might have avoided along the way. Data support this view. When institutions deliver on both margins, the level of economic opportunity is high and access is broad. To see why finance is so important, think about what it means for your retirement security. Notice that the money you make today is really just a claim check, a way for society to remember the favors that you did for them during your working years. Starbucks gives me a lot of tasty coffee in return for my many favors of lecturing on economics. That's another joke. But if our claim checks do not appreciate during our working years, we have to delay our retirement or make do with a poor retirement. It is this latter choice that has confronted people for almost all of history, and one that we will increasingly face if our financial sector does not become more competitive. Without financial regulations that let people win and lose, the economic wealth we enjoy today could not have started. Economies grow because of innovations, like the incredibly powerful computers we all have in our pockets right now. But innovations can't happen unless financial institutions channel our claim checks, our money, to the most promising entrepreneurs, not the best connected cronies. The panic of 2008 reminds us that our financial institutions can still discourage economic dynamism. Our conference will help us better understand why we continue to fall short, and importantly, how we can do better. Our lineup of speakers is impressive, both today with Mercatus and tomorrow with our friends at Keynote. Today's first panel will help us understand how measuring the benefits and costs of financial regulation can promote economic opportunity and discourage political favor. We'll build on that conversation during lunch when we interview several distinguished regulators about how such principles can be put into practice. Throughout the day, we'll bridge the gap between quality research and policy opportunities. After lunch, an expert panel will address what may be today's most prominent financial issue, macro-prudential regulation. Might be as scary as it sounds. And the Honorable Jeb Hensarling will close our first day by sharing his perspectives on how these ideas are viewed from Congress. A few points of housekeeping before we introduce our first speaker. Bathrooms are just outside the door to my left, as well as snacks and refreshments. Also, toward the end of each one of our panels, we have microphones set up. One microphone is here, another microphone back here. As each panel begins to end, please feel free to approach the microphone so that a moderator can address you. And also, please remember that good questions end with a question mark. A great day lies ahead of us, but a great day also needs a great start. I can't think of a better way to begin than with one of today's most important financial scholars and commentators, and a good bet for a Nobel Prize in economics. John Cochrane is the AQR Capital Management Professor at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. He not only understands financial economics, he is passionate about sharing that understanding so that policy can do a better job of improving people's lives. If you're not already familiar with Professor Cochrane's work, I highly recommend his blog, The Grumpy Economist. Though we'll see this morning that he can be a pretty cheerful guy. Dr. Cochrane also frequently shares his opinions in the Wall Street Journal. His recent article speaks to what motivates his and our passions for getting financial institutions right. He wrote that slow growth trumps every other economic problem. Without growth, the lot of the unfortunate will not improve. People often see financial system as a sideshow for what we really care about, and that is economic opportunity. They are wrong. Financial economists like Professor Cochran get it right. Competitive markets are important for people to live free, safe, and prosperous lives. Such powerful insights are the hallmark of Chicago economics, the work of Coase, Friedman, Hayek, and so many others who helped shape the Mercatus framework for political economy research. I recently chaired my class reunion at Chicago Booth, and I'm proud that we broke the fundraising record for a 20-year anniversary. That tells me that a lot of my classmates are doing well by doing good through financial markets and policy. We couldn't have done it without great teachers like Professor Cochran,